This is Tiger Cats postgame on the Ticats Audio Network.
It's official. The regular season has come to a conclusion. Unfortunately, the Tiger Cats will go down to 8-10 in terms of their overall record in the regular season. Montreal Alouettes will steady out at 11-7. Final score: Alouettes 22, Tiger Cats 20. This is Tiger Cats postgame. I'm Bubba O'Neill along with Andy Fantuz. We will be joined by RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker in moments as we go roundtable form. We will get down to the locker room to talk to Coach Joe. Sean Thomas Erlington will be our special guest as our performer of the game. And I'll tell you, Andy Fantuz, one of those, I don't know how to feel after this game. There were some moments of this contest that made me feel real good, and then there were some moments of this game where I'm not too happy about. And I would presume, more importantly, that the coaching staff kind of feel the same way.
Yeah, it was a very disjointed performance, and unhinged is kind of a word. It kind of felt preseason-esque. There were a number of drop passes, a number of miscues. In formations, in penalties. There were some great performances. The defense played really well for a majority of the game while they had their starters in there. But even Montreal had some miscues as well. So just a sloppy game overall. There were some exciting plays. There's 2 special teams touchdowns, 1 for each side. But really the game came down to just to turnovers, like it has so many times. And Montreal ended up with causing 5 turnovers versus Hamilton's 1. So that was the lopsided stat of the game, and that's what led to the 2-point win for Montreal. I think both teams are gonna try to do a reset after this game in their locker rooms and going into the practice week, and I would expect we see a completely different feel and different look and different game next week.
We'll continue the breakdown of this contest, but first it's time for our catch of the game presented by Fisherman's Friend. Fisherman's Friend, it works. That's the honest truth. Here's the situation, folks. The Hamilton Tiger Cats were on the move in the third quarter. 1:33 remaining in that quarter. 2nd down and 10.
2nd and 10. Ball's on the Hamilton 37. Tiger Cats going from right to left. White tops, gold pants. Powell with time. Throwing deep. He's got a receiver. It's Keandre Smith, and he's caught it. He is down near the Montreal 30. The Tiger Cats keep it rolling with an active Green and Ross 1st down and more.
Very, very fun to watch this offense. Taylor Powell deep down the right side, incomplete. Let's just go right back to it. And he goes deep down the left sidelines to Keandre Smith and puts it in a position for Keandre to adjust to the football, which he does. There's a little spark. I mean, they just found a little energy in the second half. Honestly, I think it's because they gave up that single and started on the 40-yard line and got a little breathing room. I was so tired of seeing
the shadows of the goalpost.
Exactly, in every single frame.
43-yard gain on the play there, Andy, and Keandre continues to, I would say, prove to any Ticat fan, and of course the Canadian Football League, that he deserves to be a starting wide receiver in this league.
Yeah, Keandre makes a number of plays time after time, and he's reliable. You know the quarterback's going to like him. He's a big target. He's physical. He's fiery. He goes for extra yards. And if I'm going to give him any kind of knock, really, it's sometimes he tries a little too hard for extra yards because he had a fumble today. We remember his fumble in the playoff game in Montreal last year in the dying moments of the game. But other than those few times, I mean, you can't really think of a lot of times he hasn't come up with the play. So I love watching him play. I love when they go to him and get him involved. Him and Sean Thomas Erlington were probably the 2 brightest stars today, even though they both had a couple negative plays. Sean Thomas Erlington seemed to always make something happen when he had the ball today. He is our Hercules performer of the game. 12 carries, 80 yards, a touchdown. He had a catch for 8 yards. But he had 2 drops as well, so he's going to go back and look himself in the mirror, just like everybody else on this team, and know that there's room for improvement.
RJ and Luke have joined us roundtable style, and they can certainly participate as we review the CarStar keys to the game there, Andy.
Yeah, number 1 was set the tone, and honestly, it was hard to really gauge this one. I didn't necessarily think they dominated the line of scrimmage one way or the other. It was pretty evenly matched there. I thought the players were playing hard. They just not a lot of finish and execution at the final end of each play. And the play calling seemed fairly vanilla. We did see some different formations and motions, which we expected, but a few times those resulted in actually offsides and procedure penalties. So they didn't spend enough time kind of making those solid so that they would be effective today. So just a strange one there, but I think both teams are going to go in and know that they're not going to see the same team next week.
Folks, let's get down to the locker room. We do have exclusive access and joined with our player of the game, presented by Hercules Tire, our performer of the game, Sean Thomas Erlington, right on our strength. And of course, as we get down to the locker room, this interview is presented by Access Storage. Score a touchdown with affordable storage. Access Storage has flexible storage solutions at a store near you. Try 4 weeks for free. Details at accessstorage.ca. Sean Thomas Erlington, again, one of those situations where it's one of those games that really doesn't have a lot of meaning in the standings, but you certainly laid down the lawn, and it was, I guess it had to feel good for you to get back and involved in that running game.
Absolutely, it's always good to go into a game and being able to do, what I'm paid to do, right? And doing it well in front of my friends and family, and just setting the tone for next week.
You mentioned your friends and family. Is it always a little extra special to play in Montreal and then going back there next week to kind of come off a performance like this?
It definitely is. Obviously, like having family around is always a great thing. It's also maybe a little bit of pressure, but I feel like I perform well under pressure, and when I play in Montreal, things seem to go well normally.
ST, nice job personally tonight. Obviously, sort of a bumpy game in general. Rough first half, and not ending the way that your team wanted to end that game.
Yeah.
In your opinion right now, what's got to change going into this playoffs?
We obviously got to start fast. Starting first play with a turnover is not the way we want to do it.
Yeah.
We just want to, just move the ball one play at a time, get some first downs, and eventually big plays happen.
Sean, you're a fan favorite because you do everything. You had the big game with 80 yards rushing, you caught a pass, and on special teams. Do you get pretty motivated when you make those special teams tackles too?
It's a little extra because special teams, I often tell the guys, like, special teams compared to offense it requires a lot more from your body. So when you get to finally get one of that tackles, I know I missed one during the game. When you get one, it's just a little bit extra.
Sean, were you guys as players knowing that you're going to leave a lot of the playbook out today, or perhaps run certain plays to set up things for next week?
Excuse me, what was that?
As players, were you guys aware that you were going to be limiting your playbook today, or perhaps even putting certain plays in to set up things for next week?
Well, it's always part of the game plan. Obviously, we know we're going to play them next week. We brought some things we wanted to see, some things we didn't show. I think it's the same for them as well. So we're just working what we got.
Sean Thomas Erlington, a good luck in terms of your practice week and getting ready for, I guess, the game that certainly means it all, as it's sudden death situation in the East semifinal. Oh, yeah. And just as a personal note, I'm hoping that we get our hurdle. I know you like to do the hurdle in Montreal every once in a while. That we
it's been a while.
That we get to see it. We get to see it in the playoff game next week.
Who knows? We'll see.
Thanks for joining us, Sean Thomas Erlington.
No problem.
All right, folks. And let's get back to what you were talking about in terms of your CarStar keys to victory. And Luke, in a situation. We have Coach O. He's really quick this week here. Folks, we do have exclusive access to the coaching room. Time to check in with Coach O, presented by Access Storage. Score a touchdown with affordable storage. Access Storage has flexible storage solutions at a store near you. Try 4 weeks free. Details at accessstorage.ca. Coach Orlando Steinauer, one of these games where, again, not a lot of meaning in the standings, and I know you're constantly doing a lot of evaluation. Let's hear your evaluation of today's contest.
Well,
We're just looking for Coach O.
I hope that wasn't his answer.
Well, yeah. Was it better than we're looking at the film? Maybe he is looking at the film right now. We'll go right back to Coach O and we can connect with him. But I'd like to go back to let's Coach O. Are you right there with us? Coach Orlando Steinauer, are you with us? Well, we've been working to get that connection all fixed up there, folks.
It's the locker rooms are bunkers down there in Montreal. The connection got lost.
Hello?
Oh,
there he is.
There's Coach.
Coach O, you with us? Coach O? Coach Orlando Steiner, are you with us?
Bubba,
Technical difficulties.
let's see if you're lucky this time, Bubba.
3, 2, 1. Coach O, you with us? Yeah, our connection does not want to work this time. This is
Unhinged broadcast, unhinged game.
Yeah, it was like a preseason game.
It was. The first half especially the 1 second down conversion for both teams in the first half there. You saw some good play, though, as the third quarter progressed and some scoring drives, interesting special teams battle as well.
And that's where I wanted to talk about it in terms of Andy's, his car star keys to the victory, which we will try again with Coach O. Coach O, you with us?
Hello?
There you go, Coach O. We're talking about this game being really an evaluation and maybe a setup for next week. Your thoughts in terms of evaluating this contest? I know you haven't looked at the film, but just from your first initial thoughts.
Well,
yeah. We've kind of gone a couple of seasons doing this without any issues. So, like you said, disjointed.
This is the game for it. We need them next week for the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, let's continue on the mindset that, again, from the car star keys to victory of your thought about starting fast. And Luke, you kind of alluded to it. I thought Bo, in my opinion, I thought he looked good movement-wise. But just, passes were maybe a little inch too far, or there was a drop, and I just don't know. I mean, because a lot of the personnel was the same.
Yeah. So three things stand out to me for Bo's performance, which was the first half of this game. The first one is drops. Too many drops from a number of guys. The second one is there was substantial pressure, and that is a problem because you do have the starting 5 offensive linemen for the Ticats playing tonight. So that's an issue that has to get resolved. I thought there was a very, very aggressive rush from Montreal, and Bo had to deal with that. And the third thing was you did see some deep throws that were well placed. So I don't want to peg this as a bad performance on Bo. Offensively in that first half, it was really poor. There was no production offensively. But I don't put that all on Bo Levi Mitchell. I think that he made some plays that were at a high level. It's just kind of hard to grade out a game like that for him.
I think having a guy like Tim White in the lineup as well would relieve some of that pressure because you wouldn't feel as confident leaving single coverage across the board when you have Tim White there. And just to kind of build on what you said with that pressure, I thought he was moving better than we've seen him move this year, Bo, and throwing on the run, some pretty accurate deep balls like you mentioned. But the production numbers were just not where you want to be. 1 first down in the first half and no second down conversions. In the second half, Ticats ended up with 10 first downs, and there were 6 for 12 on second down conversions in the second half with over twice as many yards in the second half. So they did pick it up, but there were some starters not in the game for both teams, and that's why you did see, I think, more offensive production on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, Andy, you mentioned Tim White and James Butler, too, over 1,000 yards rushing and really effective out of the backfield, too, catching the football. So that's another major weapon the Tiger Cats didn't have. I'm sure Bo would have loved to go 10 for 10. Couple of touchdowns. I don't think it'll affect him. He was brought in to win playoff games. Montreal's a really good defense, and I think Bo Levi Mitchell learned a lot from this game too. Being able to see that most of the number one defense for Montreal, so that's valuable intel that he's going to have and be able to sit down with Scott Milinovich, and they'll come up with a game plan. You put in Tim White and James Butler, and it could be a lot different. We saw the defenses. Both teams' defenses were very good. If the Tiger Cats offense can click next week, use some of this information from tonight, then that's the team that's going to win the football game.
Yeah, that's a good point, RJ. He's been here so many times before, Bo Levi Mitchell. He's got the experience. I think you're right. Either way, it's not going to affect him. This game in particular, I can't remember a game with so many drop passes on both sides.
Yep.
And I don't know the exact stat right now, but I do want to find out. It had to be double digits, if not 15 or more. So,
which is something we would expect in June, right?
Yeah, and that was the next thing. Like, for being a nice weather day with not a lot of wind, no rain, just an unbelievable amount of lack of focus at the end of plays.
14 incompletions. So how many of those were drops? A lot of them.
Seemed like a lot of them. How about Karstar Key?
Both teams?
No, just Ticats.
Yeah.
Wow. Karstar Key, number 2?
Well, number 2 was protect the quarterback, and like that being the top priority, to keep him healthy, to get him in a rhythm, build confidence. Well, there weren't a lot of sacks in that first half, only one for Montreal in the first half, but there were so many times where Bo Levi had to get the ball out of his hands quickly, had to move around in the pocket, almost had probably should have been another safety for intentional grounding in his own end zone. So they did not do a good job with that, as we kind of already alluded to. But the fact of bringing in James Butler and Tim White, I think, would just alleviate pressure, because the defensive coordinator wouldn't be so confident to dial up all those blitzes.
And on top of that, James Butler is a pretty good blocker in the backfield as well, too, which I think would have certainly helped out.
You know, I was a little surprised at one thing that Montreal did in that game, and that was the little punt for a yard that
well, Andy and I have been talking about this since
that would be a play that I would think you'd save for the playoffs, because now the Tiger Cats are going to be doing their homework on that for the playoff.
I agree. We talk about smoke and mirrors. That's one you want to leave in your back pocket for sure. And I was surprised too to see that come out now. And we said it as soon as we saw it. We said, I'm so glad that happened today.
Exactly.
Because we certainly weren't ready for it, and we're not going to be covering 20 yards deep on 2nd and 20 next time.
And interestingly, they actually didn't turn any points from that drive. They punted on the next set of downs. So yeah, it's sort of a spent round there.
I got to join Andy in this, and we've been talking about this since I think it was the Ottawa Red Blacks that kind of did it, and it's been kind of talked about around the league. Why don't teams do that once a game? Like, honestly. Well, like if you're in trouble, 2nd down, 13, there's a lot of times that you're running a defense or a zone defense where you're going to probably had 10 yards of pad, and so pull it off. It's amazing.
Don't watch it though.
Yeah, that's true, because it could be catastrophic to misfire on that, but because the way you defend it, you're right. You'd have to bring somebody up to cover down that check down option, which is usually going to be the receiver or running back who can operate that little pooch kick across the line of scrimmage. So if a team was really showing that to the point where you're going to game plan against it, which now the Ticats maybe will, you are going to draw a player up from that defensive secondary. I think it's maybe that's the reason the Montreal would want to remind the Ticats that plays in their arsenal. You're going to give a higher probability of your standard sort of 2nd and long play call.
See, I thought that play you had to punt it across the line before you recovered it, and I looked at that thing over and over, and I mean, I don't have the film yet downloaded, but I'm 90% sure he touched that before it crossed the line and brought it a yard past the line, which
interesting.
I don't actually know the rule. I'm 90% sure on the rule, and I'm 90% sure he touched it before it crossed, because if that blue line that they show on TV, because that's where I kept watching the replay on, has any indication, and exactly what I saw live, like right there, we're just watching the replay again. He touched it before it crossed the line and then brought it a yard past the line. So I don't think it should have been legal anyways, if that's the rule. But
it is the rule, because imagine if that were not the case, a punter at his 15-yard depth could just do it right to his arm. So the ball does have to cross the line of scrimmage on the little dink kick and to be the new set of downs. But interesting that Montreal chose to do that. I'll say one of the things that stuck out of this game too, Hamilton had some old habits of penalties. It was pretty brutal at times, including 4 penalties in the first 4 plays of the game. Also in those first 4 plays was a turnover and a Montreal touchdown. It was a very, very tough start to this game, and they had the lead a quarter later. In the first drive of this fourth quarter, the quarter changed during an offensive drive here. Taylor Powell moved the ball down with a big catch to Keandre Smith, but that was followed by consecutive penalties that took them out of field goal range, then a sack. That punt was returned for a touchdown by Montreal.
Well, that's going to drive the coach crazy.
Yes, Keandre Smith's reception earned them field goal range, actually easy field goal range. Penalties took them back into a punt distance, and it was returned for a touchdown. That
changed the game.
Those 2 penalties back-to-back lost the football game.
Yeah.
You got to think that next week there's going to be some kind of effect in special teams on the game.
Yeah.
Based on tonight.
And based on the history of these 2 teams, and especially in Montreal, it just seems like there's always a return for a touchdown or a turnover for a touchdown on special teams. It's going to be a lot of missed kicks today too by Montreal.
Well, he's missed
bad punts on both sides of the
Sorry, Andy, finish.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Yeah.
Cote's missed 13 field goals this year.
Yeah.
Like, one of them was pretty long, a little over 50 yards, but go into the playoffs, like Mark Leggio's hit 12 in a row, got a chance to play in Montreal, kicked a couple of field goals, looked solid. David Cote has to have that doubt in his mind, and that's dangerous in the playoffs when it could come down to a field goal.
Yeah, that's a great point. You got to think that's advantage Ticats as far as the field goal kickers go.
Let's just finish up with your key number 3, which I know we have to kind of dig into this as well too, because the Ticats weren't good.
Yeah, win the turnover battle. It was 5-1 on the wrong side. You don't want to end a season like that. You had a 0 turnover ratio over the entire season coming into the game. Now you end up with a -4 turnover ratio. And the interception was a bad throw, but kind of got unlucky. It popped off the guy's helmet and was just kind of a buffet for the next defender coming in. But the fumbles, you got to be able to watch out for those hatchets as the weather gets colder, playoff time comes. You know teams are looking to punch that ball out, and it just takes extra focus on ball security. So that has to be cleaned up in the fundamental side of practice in this week.
Okay, so we've chewed all of that out now. At the end of the day now, we're coming down to 1 game, right? And you guys as players, 2 of you, it's sudden death. Your season's over or you're moving on. Your approach for practice this week.
Yeah, it's interesting. You just came off a bye week. You're probably going to get some decent reps in practice this week. Like, this isn't going to just be a crazy light week. You've got to rep some things. You've got to get these receivers and these quarterbacks. And I think it's apparent we don't know who's going to be at quarterback. I think there's a possibility that you see Matt Schultz, who was not suited up today. Of course, Bo Levi Mitchell would be the expected starter, but it's not set in stone at this time. And so you've got to get some rhythm for who's going to be out there. You got a big lesson today in penalties and turnovers. You did not do well in either of those categories, and now it's time to doing poorly in turnovers and penalties can end your season at this point.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting practice week. One thing I thought in the game, Fajardo got hit pretty hard. Stanback got hit pretty hard. Austin Mack got rocked by Stavros Katsantonis. So if nothing else, there was some messages sent. And I don't think there were too many Tiger Cats, at least key guys, who seem to be banged up, like those 3 key guys on offense for Montreal. So
True.
They might not be 100% going into next week.
That is a good point, and that kind of goes with set the tone, the first car star key. But as far as getting into this week, I think you want to be sharp and efficient in practice. You do want to go 100% like Luke is talking about when you are doing your reps, but you don't need to overwork unnecessarily. Get your fundamentals in, just have high energy, but be quick and effective and not drag things out, and just stay loose, have fun, and be sharp. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for these players this week, and getting back into Montreal, they'll have a little bit more comfort zone being there just today and yesterday. So just really excited for these guys for next Saturday.
This game gave some coachable moments. It's great.
Hamilton Tiger Cats closed the regular season at 8-10. Final score, Alouettes 22, Hamilton Tiger Cats 20. Folks, we will be previewing the Big East semifinal all week on the Ticats Audio Network on all platforms. You want to be joining us all of the week leading up to the big ball game. For Andy Fantuz, I'm Bubba O'Neill, along with RJ Broadhead, Luke Tasker, and all the many hands that put together this fine broadcast. Like I said, we will be back a week from today. Tiger Cats pregame presented by Greenworks, as these Hamilton Tiger Cats are in Montreal for the Eastern semifinal. Our broadcast starts at 2 p.m. 2 p.m., folks, and we'll be streaming live at listen.ticats.ca and across the Ticats Audio Network. We'll see you next week.